at, for example, Foster City Elementary, most of the improvements are priority tier 3. Beach Park Elementary, all the improvements near are priority tier 3. Bowditch, priority tier 2. Audubon, priority tier 2 and priority tier 3. So if we're defining
Yes.
priority tier 1 as access to school,
Yeah, we were
why-
looking at the kind of direct connection to the school. So the example of Foster City that you brought up, those are part of the route. However, that intersection right at Edgewater and Beach Park is sort of where the primary access is, and then included the one above because it's sort of on an arterial, high-speed arterial, wanting to include that as part of it. So I think if the recommendation from the TRC is to add more, and we'd want to think about what the right threshold is and at what point we consider directly adjacent to schools, or if it's within 2 intersections away from school, 2 or 3 intersections, or like a half-mile threshold. I think we could expand this, but I think we're trying to think through the limited resources that are often available to projects like this, providing some sort of opportunity to start with the most important and kind of scale from there.
I think those are very good points. Then my recommendation would be to at least have a couple of tier 1 improvements near all the schools. So for example, like again, I'm going to use Audubon as an example because we go there. Like there's no tier 1 access to Audubon. Like if you take, so the typical access points are Crane or I guess like Gull, if I'm reading the map correctly, right? Like neither of them have any tier 1. Like at least like having like one tier 1 near each, like a couple of tier 1s near each school would be a good idea. I understand like resource limited. We need to find like where to start from. We can't do everything at once. We can't get everything we want at once. But I would try to have at least a couple of points with minimal stress for people.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for that feedback. We'll look at that.
Also, Catamaran Park, I think it's a connector to the residents around Catamaran to the Beach Park Elementary School. It also has a park there, and it also has a church there. So it serves, members of, all ages, right? Pretty much. So I think that should be priority 1, I would think. And then I don't see any priority given to Sea Cloud Park. I mean, Sea Cloud Park has a lot of, kids, especially on the weekends. So I think there should be some priority given to Sea Cloud Park as far as pedestrian is concerned. So.
Yeah, I hear you on the catamaran, so maybe there's opportunity for that. And we'll need to discuss as a project team how Sea Cloud Park is evaluated. The intersections at Sea Cloud Park were considered low stress crossings. However, if there's, the way the analysis work doesn't always account for user experience. So if there's an actual perception that the crossings there at the kind of end of the roadway are actually stressful, I think that would be helpful to hear, and that could help us move those intersections onto this map because they're not currently.
Public has questions, so
should we start public?
Did you want to ask a question to public comment, or
We do have more in the presentation, so I don't know if that's more of the typical approach for public comment. I've got about 9 more slides.
Oh, sorry. I thought. I'm sorry.
public what for the end, right? Or
yeah, we should have the presentation finished then, and then we'll take public comment after.
Okay, I'll hold my questions to the end too then. Sorry for interrupting earlier.
Yeah, no, I thought we were done. Sorry.
I like to keep things interactive. I didn't want to go too far without, this is an important piece. So yeah, I did prompt the questions, but we can always go back to this slide later. Okay, so the last section of the presentation is our upcoming phase 2 engagement. So as I mentioned, phase 1, we really wanted to understand what the lived experience is so we could leverage the data that the community was sharing with us into this process. as part of phase 2, we want to kind of socialize and confirm we got this. We got their experience right, and the network that we're suggesting is generally in alignment with perceptions of what they would like to see. So really our hope is to get feedback on the proposed future network, and we're going to share what we heard from them as part of phase 1 and get input on the future network that we just shared with you today, potentially with some slight revisions, but we'll coordinate with Claire and Francina. What that will look like is we will continue to update the webpage and we'll host a new survey. So as part of this project, we set up a social pinpoint site where we will launch a second kind of mapping exercise, asking people to weigh in on the improvements, let us know if we missed anything, and then we'll kind of compile those comments and take those comments into developing a final network that will go into the final plan. The places that we're planning to kind of host in-person engagement include the community bike ride, which is scheduled for 2 weeks from now on a Sunday. So if you're coming, I hope to meet you in person. And then we are also in the process of setting up a focus group meeting. We're hoping to do this with the school districts or PTA as part of a prioritizing schools. And so that's in the works, and we're hoping for that to occur kind of end of September, early October. So just very quickly kind of sharing what our materials will look like. As I mentioned, the primary ask is to get input on the proposed future bicycle network. So we'll have a map similar to what you all saw here today, and then ask folks to share whether they agree, disagree, or if we are missing something that would be particularly helpful. Given that sometimes this classification terminology is not layman's term, we're also planning to provide images of what that looks like in practice. Some examples specifically from Foster City to give people a sense of what that facility looks like and how that correlates to the map. We also will have the same kind of exercise for the proposed pedestrian network and begin to explain, and we'll be there in person to help kind of reinforce any questions and facilitate discussion around these, but help folks understand kind of what we mean, how we got to this process. And then similarly, we wanted to just sort of provide a high level what folks can anticipate or what types of improvements might happen as part of the pedestrian network improvements. And so just having some visuals to add, create a discussion and share not only like what these are, but what is their safety benefit? What can you expect to receive as part of safety benefits by adding these on the roadway? So just at a high level, kind of what's next, we're planning to launch our survey for the proposed future network next Friday, September 19th. I mentioned that we'll be attending the community bike ride on September 21st, and then we're hoping to have a finalized network by the mid to end of October. And with that, here is my contact information in case anyone needs it, and I will refer to the chair to facilitate public comment and questions.
Okay. What's that?
Would you like-
Yes, let's do that.
Did you wanna, we can do in-person speaker first, and then we'll take the comments on Zoom if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay,
Sure.
sure.
Great. Kenny Swole, local resident, and I'm on the sustainability committee. I bike a lot, and when I hear, the strong and fearless category of how people bike around, that's not my type. So thanks Claire for letting me know that we have, this kind of thing. So, I typically check out a bike from the library and I bike around. I even get on to Strava. I bike around the waterfront, even try to create some environmental graphic because that's my fun. I'm an architect. So, two simple questions. I bike, how do you call it? Inside Foster City a lot, but also kind of try to connect out, right? So I'm just curious how our kind of infrastructure connect to, area beyond that. Number one, number two, it's even easier. I've seen Helios Science campus, there's some proposed facility upgrade stuff like that. My biking experience in that area is that typically you get security guard follow you around. That's kind of just, I mentioned that a couple of times to people. So I don't know how we, kind of Okay, so first one is that how we can overlap. Oh, actually, the thing is that I also put my bike onto the shuttle bus and get out of the city. So I do know people, bring their bike, onto the shuttle into the city. So how do we overlap that kind of, connectivity, this and that? So thank you.
And we have 2 raised hands on Zoom. First we have Yuli.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I wanted to thank Assistant Engineer McWilliams for being responsive to the emails and suggestions. I think the networks looks generally good, and it's a lot of thoughtful work that I know Public Works and the team at Fair and Pierce has put into this. It looks very responsive to the comments on the map, but another same criticism, it's hard for the public to evaluate and give provide comment. I'd ask that you guys just upload the slides and the handout just onto the project website, which I think Angelica already touched on, so thank you for that. I know you guys will already be soliciting public comment in phase 2, but I would ask that this be provided in a packet. I was wondering, did the committee members get a copy of these slides before the meeting? How are the committee members supposed to take, a 5 or 10-minute look at the map with, 100 points and no details on each of the points and give feedback on what's missing and what's not missing? Like adjacent to Foster State Elementary, for example, we see a bunch of points on Edgewater northbound. What do those kind of mean? Will Fair and Peers post like a ArcGIS map or experience that elucidates what each of those points means? Like, oh, this is a crosswalk. Because I would love to, hear the actual ideas instead of just seeing points on a map. And following up on Kenneth's comment, I think considering connections to other cities is a good point. Because I know another member of our group, Fred, he said he bikes on 3rd Ave. He works in South San Francisco, so he bikes from Foster City to South San Francisco. And the bike lane suddenly appears once you get into San Mateo. So it would be great to have some sort of like policy of coordinating with other cities. Same thing with the Belmont, like the connection to the baseball field. A lot of people don't know about that. You can actually bike to like Redwood City and Belmont on almost like a very low stress environment, but a lot of people don't know that. So it'd be great because those are our closest Caltrain connections. If no one is going to bike over Hillsdale, no one is, by the way. But so just publicizing those. But yeah, I'm very happy to see this going forward. I think the entire city is ready for stage 2.
Next we have Pablo.
Oh, hi everyone. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit hard to sort of like respond to the map and like sort of what the recommendations are. But I mean, I also want to just start off by saying that I think as far as Foster City, we're all very lucky to live in Foster City, and even on the streets that are not bike friendly or don't have any additional like interventions currently, it's still not as dangerous as other communities. And I think, Foster City is really it's like a cul-de-sac, really. It's a cul-de-sac community, like where there's very limited entrances and exits out of it. And so I think it really lends itself to making sure that, we make traffic, cars particularly, slow down. And I think it's very possible to do that. And like some things like the shared roads, I think those only work when speeds are lower. I think when speeds are higher, it doesn't, people still don't feel comfortable, even though there's a sign on the ground that says, you have the right to be on here on your bike. It doesn't really, people are still not gonna, they're still gonna use the sidewalk. I see it every day. Like kids going to middle school, they're not gonna be in the middle of the road with cars zipping by them. So I mean, I think the Caltrain is I guess a good starting point. Um, but I think we have the opportunity here because it is a cul-de-sac community, because we have so many green spaces and we have people, families, um, that I think we can really make Foster City that much better because we have a lot of things going for us. We have the waterways that sort of limit the amount of traffic. So I definitely look forward to seeing what's coming next. But I would say just sort of suggest that, we start off with whatever the recommendations are, but those are like the bottom that we should start with, and we should be striving for a lot more. Thank you.
Next, we have Evan Adams.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking my call. I'll just echo what everyone else has said about the bicycle and access points, especially about slowing traffic. That's a safer it'll get people to follow the rules if they feel safer in town. I really wish this meeting wasn't occurring as a special meeting. These are big subjects that I think you could have scheduled in a normally scheduled meeting. I think that's kind of unfair to the public outreach process, and I think you could get better access. Finally, it's also a pedestrian plan. I was recently told by a city staff member that the city does not have the ability to enforce any rules as to cleanliness of sidewalks. This comes as I have to roll my child through goose-filled excrement on sidewalks that aren't in front of public buildings, for example, apartment complexes. I was told to report that to the Department County of Public Health. Foster City needs, as part of their pedestrian plan, to have a plan on how to keep our sidewalks clean and usable for everyone, including pedestrians, not just bikers who happen to also use the sidewalks so often. But I think a safer bike infrastructure would go a long way to make the sidewalks safer. But still, things need to be cleaned up. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Not including some of the public comments for this item.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I have a clarification question about the bicycle network. I know that class 1 and class 4 seems to have the similar colors and they're both separated. What is the difference for when it comes to infrastructure wise that makes something a 1 versus a 4?
Sure. Yeah, a class 1 is a shared use path. Generally, it's not in the roadway. So your Bay Trail is a class 1 path, and it could be it could be bidirectional, meaning there's like a center line in the middle that separates each of the directions of travel. Sometimes they don't have a center line separating them, but the general take is that they're just outside of the roadway, fully separate from vehicles. A class 4 facility is in the roadway and there is a vertical separation. Sometimes it looks like a curb or like an armadillo, or other times it looks like a higher vertical separation, such as like a bollard or like Jersey barriers. There's a number of different like types of vertical separations that might be present, but there is some vertical separation for the bike lane from the travel lane.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a reason to use the same color on the map for both?
So one is darker and one is lighter, and this was sort of based on
hard to see.
Yeah, sorry, the printing is a little bit sometimes when they're sort of like printed, and we can certainly make the darker and the lighter like more distinct if that feels like that would be helpful. They're based on trying to be somewhat consistent with other like the CCAG's bike kind of coloration as well as Caltrans. There's really not like a set standard, but just hoping to kind of, they're meant to be like the safer and sorry, I shouldn't say safer. They're meant to be the more comfortable facilities, and so that's why they're the same color, but we did try to create a distinction.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe as a follow-up, like it's hard to like. There's also like green dashed line, and then you
Yes.
have like a green solid line.
Yeah.
And the green dashed line it's like it's hard to read.
Yeah, so I definitely understand the comment about making this an interactive map. If that's possible during the outreach, I have just a couple of my own personal suggestion when it comes to the outreach part is I would recommend clarification when you are presenting or publishing the material to really clarify that those stressor level that you were presenting when you were doing the survey is not a one-on-one correlation to the bicycle tier that has been decided on. Because I think we're using 1 to 4 and then we're using 1 to 4 here, so that took a minute to make the connection. Number 2 is for the pedestrian side, priority 1, 2, and 3, rightfully so, we're not sure what that means. It like we hear that it's about timing. Is priority 1 is gonna be like the most time intensive, or not intensive to do, but our priorities in timing it, but also any suggestion on or any example on what improvements in those areas might be. I can definitely see community member asking what that for those examples versus just agreeing like, okay, yeah, that's a priority 1, but priority 1 to do what potentially? Again, don't know if that information is available as part of the next part of the outreach. And I think those are kind of my comments here for the graphic.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? No? Okay. So since there's nothing further, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry if I talked over you.